Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Victor. This is Jack. Today we're going to talk about a prime minister of Israel who was assassinated in the 90s.
Yeah, and you may think, why are we talking about this? Are we doing Israeli history lessons? I'm going to give you the conclusion again on this video. And basically, you're going to see if I can come up with it. But I think there is no path for Israel in the future that's not this hardline extremist, they call it right wing, but whatever. This Likkud, Netanyahu style, destroying Gaza type thing. There's no path forward for them. And this is a story to prove why there can never be a path forward for Israel that's moderate.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I'm going to put it in four parts. I'm going to talk about who Yitzhak Rabin is, the man who was assassinated. Then I'm going to talk about the Oslo Accords, which is the peace process he was going through when he got assassinated for. We'll talk briefly about the assassination. Then we're going to go into Yitzhak Amir, who's the guy who assassinated him. It is very fascinating. He's going to do verses out of the Talmud for why he's going to argue in court that it was justified. Right? Okay. And now this guy, if you watched our movie, it's called Pilgrimages to the Goldstein Massacre, ? You know, that was the name of the video. This is the guy that we mentioned in the video. Yitzhak Amir, who went to the site where Baruch Goldstein had been buried and got the idea. He said, if he could do that, then I can do Rabin.
Okay.
And then he goes out and assassinates Rabin. So I only found out about this because we were researching that other video.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just learning this stuff as we go. So I'm just going to run down who Yitzhak Rabin is real fast. He's born in 1922. He's born in Israel. He fights in the pre-Israel militia, which I didn't write down the name. It's a Hebrew word. Okay. He was arrested on Black Saturday during Operation Agatha, right, by the British because basically this was 1946. And the Israelis started to do such crazy things. We talked about this in another video to the Palestinians that the UK turned on him and started arresting Israelis. So he gets in prison for 5 months and he's released in 1947. As soon as he gets released, he's now made the chief of operations in the militia. There's still a pre-Israel militia because it's 1947. Now Israel becomes a country, and in the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, which we've covered, I'll put a link in the description below, he directed forces in Jerusalem and in the Negev against Egypt. Okay, that war's over. Now 1964, he was named the IDF's chief of staff, Israeli Defense Force, right? Along with Ezer Weizman, who was chief of Israeli Air Force, and they built up the military together, which is important because 3 years later, they're going into the Six-Day War. 1967, we haven't done a video exclusively on that one, but they said, they moved 2 divisions up to the Sinai. They're about to do a 5-country preemptive strike on us. We're going to preemptive strike them. And they just went into different countries and just slaughtered the air forces and stuff. Absolutely belligerent. But they say, we're not a belligerent. We're pretty sure they were going to be belligerent sometime in the future. That's belligerent. We'll cover that in a different video. But he helped mastermind the 1967 preemptive Israeli strike, right?
Okay.
During this time, though, he comes down with anxiety because he's guilty of a lot of killing now. And even the Surgeon General has to prescribe him medication because he is feeling this, like he doesn't not have a soul, right? So he served for several years as an Israeli ambassador to the U.S. That's going to become important when he gets kicked out as a prime minister. So in June 3rd, 1974, he becomes the first prime minister born in Israel and the 5th prime minister overall.
Okay.
He's going to be prime minister twice. This is the first term. It's going to be way later. So he's in the Labor Party, which is more moderate. Okay. And so he held on to secular principles, but regarding Jerusalem, he said, quote, and he's telling this to a group of Orthodox Jews at a speaking thing, quote, on Jerusalem, I will not compromise. That is my focal point. But Ramallah is not a question of life or death for me. Because he's taking the religious Judaism and he's saying Jerusalem is so incredibly important.
Okay.
But these other towns like Ramallah, we could work on something. And then he also quoted as saying, the Bible is not a land registry for the Middle East, which means he's not going for Greater Israel. We're going to talk about Greater Israel in another video and how many different countries Israel's going to have to take over to get their land registry in the Middle East that's in the Bible. Okay, so basically, back when Rabin was an ambassador in the United States, he had created a joint account with his wife in Washington, D.C., a bank account, right? Now, this is a violation of Israel's currency laws at the time. It got broke by some reporters, huge scandal. He stepped down from leadership in 1977. So he served from 74 to 77, right? In the 1977 election, Labor lost to the Likkud Party, founded by Menachem Begin, remember, who you researched a little bit, and that was in a comment somebody said, Ariel Sharon, and is now the party of Benjamin Netanyahu,
Oh, okay.
the Likkud, the far right. Okay, so they founded the party in 73, and Labor lost to him in 77. So Menachem Begin becomes president. Ariel Sharon will later be president. Netanyahu will later become president. Okay, so then he became a Knesset member, which is their Congress, for 7 years under Begin. And then 1840 to 1890, he was the Minister of Defense for the country. He oversaw the Israeli response to the first Intifada. And the Intifada, we're going to cover that probably in a different video. But it's basically like an uprising of protests and stuff, where the Palestinians are like, this is not right. Okay? He authorized the use of force and became known as Rabin the Bone Breaker, because he authorized troops to break bones to end demonstrations. Because democracy,
Yes.
our aircraft carrier in the Middle East of democracy.
Yeah.
Because, nobody, peaceful protests. And even if they're not peaceful and they're throwing rocks at you, and it's like, because I put a video link in the description below.
Okay.
But when you get to this part of the story, you just show like a Palestinian with a flag, like yelling, and there's like, shoot him in the leg. And the guy's like, oh, and falls down. It's like, democracy. Let's support him more. Let's support him hard. Okay. So in 1992, he gets reelected. So 74 to 77. Now 92, he's reelected as prime minister. His sole goal this term is to get peace. I feel like he's getting old and he's got regrets.
Oh, okay.
And he's trying to do the redemption arc. And if you do, I don't care where you came from. Do your redemption arc, right? Do it. Make your soul at peace before you die. Okay. So then basically now we're going to discuss the Oslo Accords. That's what's going on at this time. Okay. So they made these secret Oslo Accords because they didn't want the PLOs in charge, Yasser Arafat, of the Palestinians, and Yitzhak Rabin is in charge here. And they're like, we'll do secret meetings in Oslo, Norway. And so then they meet up there, they come to an agreement, and it's signed. Oh, wait, let's go back. I just want to tell you briefly about the Camp David Accords, which are the predecessor to that. And you got to understand how they're building for peace here. So Jimmy Carter signed these in 1978. It allowed for some peace, but no Palestinian self-governance. And it was the status quo from 78 to 92 when Oslo I signed. So Oslo is designed to work on borders, governance, and peace. 3 parts, right? Oslo, now in 1992, it began, and it was signed in September 1993 in D.C., with the PLO signing it, Israel, Russia, and the U.S. Interesting that Russia was in on it.
Yeah.
But you get another important player, we'll say, even in the 90s. So what did Oslo I do? It did 3 things. Number 1, Israel officially recognizes the PLO as representatives for the Palestinians.
Okay.
Because they're just a terrorist organization right now. Yasser Arafat's behind the Olympic bombing where they bombed the Israeli, athletes. And number 2, PLO renounces terrorism and recognizes the state of Israel. Big deal. Number 3, over a 5-year period, a Palestinian Authority, also called the Palestinian National Authority, also called the PA, would be set up to rule over the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. So over a 5-year period. But they even accelerate that to be even more peacy. So the first one signed in September of 1993. The second one signed in September of 1995. Wow. So only 2 years later, and they're getting more stuff because they're actually doing the PA thing. And so this one this was signed in Taba, Egypt. And basically the IDF agreed to withdraw from the 6 largest Palestinian cities and 450 of their towns. Good, right? And then this is where that terrible deal in the West Bank came. I don't know if you've seen it, but I'll probably put a picture on the screen. But they made it sections A, B, and C of the West Bank. A are these tiny little pockets, full Palestinian control. Then section B is a little bit bigger, and this one has Palestinian civil control, but IDF military control. And then the majority of it, with all these pockets inside of it, the majority of it is Area C, which is all Israelis controlled. And so then what happens is this is officially the Palestinian area, right? But all these settlers are moving in there. So basically I was watching another video that I'm not going to link, but the guy was saying between the time of the Oslo Accords, there was 100,000 settlers in the area, and today there's 500,000 settlers in these same areas we're talking about in the West Bank.
And it's all Palestinians?
No, these are Israeli settlers.
Oh, okay.
So Oslo was meant to make this not a thing, but it's become 5 times more a thing. So basically, here's the situation in Israel. The majority of Israelis don't support peace out of security concerns because they like the fact that the IDF is in the 6 major Palestinian cities, in the 450 towns, because we're secure over here in our settlement. But you walk away from that, we don't know who's going to come on a hang glider or whatever. I'm joking, but it's a pretty bad joke. Okay. So, and the majority of Palestinians didn't support peace because they would lose their land. Because if you agree to this peace deal, it's like, okay, but what about Ramallah? What about all these other lands? You can keep Haifa, but what about all the majority of the land that's actually ours? So the Palestinians are against it. From January to August 1995, 40 Israelis were killed by Palestinian suicide bombers. So not a huge amount, but there was a ton injured and stuff.
Yeah.
But there was actually atrocities going on both sides. The IDF was because these other, the nation was kind of wild right then. Now we'll talk about the assassination real fast. Okay. Stop me if you got any questions. Okay. On November 4th, 1995, Rabin held a peace rally in which would later be called Rabin Square for obvious reasons. So he feared no one would come because he was kind of this shy guy. And he was just so scared that he was going to go out there and there's nobody there for a peace rally because there's all these uprisings in the street. And he walks out on the stage and there's 100,000 people there.
Wow.
It's just massive and everybody's got their peace signs and stuff. He gave a speech insisting Israelis were ready for peace, urging them to overcome their fears, security fears, let go of the past, good message, and finally forge an accord with their neighbors. Basically, he gives the speech and it's a great success. And then this famous singer comes out and does this beautiful song of peace, and it's an Israeli song. And then at one point she hands him a mic and he's got a little paper with it and he's shyly singing along with her. And the crowd just loves it.
Oh, wow.
Just loves it. He's doing it. And he's this shy guy.
Yeah.
And so he's doing it. And then, so he sings the song with her and the crowd's just elated. And then, so he goes to leave, but he turns back to the crowd and he says, let's not sing about peace. Let's make peace. He was really on this for this peace thing, which is why he died, right? He refused to wear a bulletproof vest. He said, quote, if there comes a time when I would need a bulletproof vest, I no longer want to be prime minister of this country. Okay? He's walking out to his car. This guy in the crowd shoots him twice in the back with a pistol, and he dies 40 minutes later. And this is the JFK of Israel.
Okay.
So you can ask any Israeli, where were you when Rabin died? I was putting my kids to death. So from their perspective, you got to understand, right? Okay. Now we're going to go on to who Yigal Amir is, because this is the interesting part. Okay? Well, a lot of it's interesting, I think. So he's born in Israel in 1970.
Okay.
So he's 48 years younger than Rabin, to an Orthodox Jewish family. He served in the IDF, you have to, compulsory, right? But he served in a religious unit, and even his comrades in the religious unit considered him a religious fanatic.
Wow.
Okay? In 1993, he went to university, which has a Jewish word, but it's where you mix religious and secular studies for a period. And so you're not just doing all the religious studies. And then he studied law and computer science as well as Jewish law. That was his mixture. He was strongly opposed to the Oslo Accords because he was in college at the time, and he participated in rallies against the Accords on campus. He was active in organizing weekend bus outings to support Israeli settlers. Talked about them, and helped in illegal settlement outposts. He was especially active in Hebron, where he led marches through the streets. Okay, so he began a platonic relationship with Nava Holtzman, but her parents rejected him because he was a Mizrahi. I can't pronounce that word. Mizrahi are those who existed in the land of Israel during the diaspora.
Okay.
So he existed there, and now he's called, like if you translate it, he's called an Oriental Jew because he didn't flee. He stayed there in the land. He's always been in the land since the days of the Romans, his families have.
But that's bad?
Yeah. They come back and be like, ugh, he's one of those Oriental Jews, they say.
I feel like he's more faithful than everyone
I
else.
feel like he's the guy. He's the catch.
Seems like.
Yeah. You're like, oh, apparently that's how they do it. You know?
Weird.
Yeah, amazing. I thought it was very interesting. Okay. So her parents rejected him. She married his friend shortly thereafter.
Nice.
Right? And he attended the wedding, and then he went into deep depression. But what he did wasn't from the depression. They're trying to infer that in the article linked below. So basically, he goes and kills him. Okay, and we're gonna talk about his defense in a second. But he shoots him twice. He injures one of his guards, but then they don't kill him. They just grab him, and then they've got him in prison. And then when the police officers told Amir that Rabin was dead because he died in 40 minutes, he said he was, quote, satisfied and was acting on, quote, the orders of God.
Okay.
That's what he told the police. So here's Amir's claim in court. He claimed that shooting Rabin was an act of din rodef. Okay?
Okay.
Under the Talmud, one who is quote, you're going to have to think about this hard, one who is, quote, pursuing another to murder him or her. According to Jewish law, such a person must be stopped, even killed, by any bystander after the pursuer has been warned and refuses to stop.
Okay.
So here's the scenario. I'm chasing you down to kill you. This bystander gives me a warning. I continue chasing you. They're allowed to pull out a gun and shoot me.
Okay.
I could stop and walk away at that point.
Right.
Okay. Now put that in the scenario with Rabin. Go. What do you think?
I don't know who Rabin was trying to kill.
Well, Rabin was making the deal with Yasser Arafat. Don't you see how this applies?
No.
It doesn't apply at all.
Oh, okay.
It's nonsense. Because his argument was, if Rabin makes the deal with Yasser Arafat, then perhaps Yasser Arafat's going to order people to kill people.
Oh.
So therefore, I'm going to chase down the one pursuing my people in the country and trying to murder them, which is Rabin. The verse doesn't apply. You can think of a lot of justification for killing Rabin based on your Talmudic values.
Yeah.
This is not going to fly. He argued this in court.
Right.
Right? So let me give you the quote from the Talmud that covers this. Okay?
Okay.
So it's from Tractate Sanhedrin 73a of the Babylonian Talmud. And these are the ones whom one must save with their lives, i.e., killing the wrongdoer. One who pursues his fellow to kill him, and then it gives the Hebrew. And after a male or a betrothed maiden, who's running after a male or betrothed maiden, to rape them, is in quotes, so it's inferred. But one who pursues an animal or desecrates the Sabbath or commits idolatry are not saved with their lives. So there's other categories too. If you're pursuing an animal, they can kill you. You shoot a deer, he's wounded. I'm like, I can't let that thing just suffer. I had to go complete the kill and bring the carcass back home. You're pursuing an animal? Maybe it has a different context. I don't understand. Desecrates the Sabbath or commits idolatry. Okay, whatever. Talmud. So anyways, so his claim that he was acting in accordance with Jewish law was rejected by the judge. Their quote is, the attempt to grant religious authority to the murderer is completely inappropriate and amounts to cynical exploitation of Jewish law for goals that are alien to Judaism. I think they're very correct, secular or from a religious perspective. I don't take that verse and that argument to do that thing.
Yes.
I think that, okay. And this is funny post-history. On December 19, 2001, the Knesset, by a majority of 62 members, approved the Yigal Amir law. So this is 6 years later, which prohibits a parole board from recommending pardon or shortening time in prison for a murderer of a prime minister. His legal team and supporters deride the law as being tailor-made to punish Amir. It's called the Yigal Amir law, being applied retrospectively. Amir began appealing on these grounds in December 2020 to the High Court of Justice Against the Law. So that's where the case is at now. So let me give you my pitch. You already know my pitch? You want to pitch my pitch?
No, go for it.
Okay, my pitch is this. If you get a Yitzhak Rabin, you will get a Talmud following Baruch Goldstein pilgrimaging.
Okay.
And then, I forgot his name, Yigal Amir. You'll get that guy. So you can't have a peace, because if the people say, we want moderation, you still got a subset. It is funny because it's like right-wing terrorism from a government perspective, if you're looking at it from the government, who are going to come in and kill your peace guys.
Because there are no half measures from those people's perspectives.
Right. And right now, those people who are the extreme people are enough of the population that they keep voting Benjamin Netanyahu.
Right, because he's one of them.
It's not like 4% of the population, and we could give it to those 4% or unradicalize them.
Yeah.
No, it's a big group of people. So if you're like, okay, wait a second, if we get it, the Likkud Party loses, we'll get another candidate in there, he's moderate, look, we can get some peace between the Palestinians. And if you're a Palestinian and you're watching this, it's not going to be peace.
Right.
You're not going to like the peace even if they offer you the peace.
Right.
And if they offer you the peace, their own people will prevent them from having the peace. They want all the land.
Right.
They just want you off.
Yeah.
And there's no way. So my argument is there's no way a moderate can win.
Interesting.
What do you think?
I feel like you're right. I can't argue against what you're saying. Yeah.
And it's a lot it's because of the Talmud, not the verse the guy quoted.
Right.
But it's a lot of, the rabbis are so much more important than the politicians.
Right.
So when the politicians aren't following the rabbis or what they perceive as, and they believe that they need to inherit all the land.
Totally.
And from their point of view, it's kind of true. And from the Palestinian point of view, they shouldn't be in the land at all. So that's also true. I'm not taking a side here.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, when you look at the United States, you'll be like, okay, hold on. It's terrible in the United States, or it's great in the United States, depending on your perspective. But in 2025, there's going to be a new president, and then it's going to be either way better or way worse, depending on your view.
Yeah.
But in Israel, you can't look at it like that. This is what you get.
Right.
You get the 1967 war, 1973 war. You get 1948. You get all of these things. It's wait till 2032. You wait. This is going to be a doozy, but it's going to keep going on, and you're going to die an old man or a woman, and it's still going to be going on. And here's why.
Right. Yeah, I feel like even when you were talking about what the judge ruled, as far as him using the Talmud as defense and all that, he didn't say that you can't use the Talmud. He said he basically used it incorrectly,
Right.
and that what he was trying to say was wrong. So the Talmud is the thing if you use it correctly.
Wow. So you get away with a lot of stuff, just not this.
Yeah, he didn't have used the verses right or whatever. That's how I heard it.
Yeah. In one of the references below, I can't remember which one it is, but they said, this is the most effective assassination in the history of the human race. Because you look at it, it fully achieved its objectives.
Oh.
The goal is no peace, and we want the land. And then that was 95. Now go 23. So we're talking 28 years later, right? And you're like, they've got more of the land. They're doing great running Palestinians out. They're mass murdering them. Right? There's no peace in sight anywhere in sight. There's been blockades since 2006, for goodness sakes. You know? And Gil Amir.
He's still alive, it sounded like?
He's still alive. He's still in jail. Yep.
Okay.
And he wrote I think he wrote a book or something.
And he's never, like, apologized and... He's probably proud.
No, this is why they gave him the full sentence. They said because rarely do we ever come across somebody with no remorse whatsoever.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't have remorse because he knows he's justified in his heart.
The ends justify the means.
Yeah, the same way that a suicide bomber, when they go and click that button, they don't regret what they're doing.
Right.
They're fully committed in the moment, and they believe they'll be getting afterlife rewards for this.
Totally.
Why should you feel regret? You're at that point.
Yeah.
If you're not at the point, you're obviously not going to do the thing.
Interesting.
You know? Okay, that's what I got.
I like it.
Yeah.
So you guys heard of this? I don't feel like I've heard of one character in the story besides the older prime ministers that I've kind of looked into.
Right.
Yeah, very interesting. And love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And hopefully we'll see you next time.